Hi, everyone. Today we're talking about Twin Peaks with our friend Jonathan Seal. You may remember Jonathan from an early episode of this podcast's first season where we talked to the band Blue Bolt. We're really excited to bring this talk to you, but first we have a couple notes. Firstly, there will be spoilers for all seasons of Twin Peaks here. If you haven't watched the show, you'll likely still enjoy this episode. We recommend having some familiarity with the show. Secondly, as much as we want to keep this show family-friendly in all its episodes, the subject matter of this talk, specifically around Twin Peaks Season 3 The Return, is going to contain some very mature themes that we'll be referencing. We do our best to be delicate, however this episode may not be for those who have tiny ears around who could hear. Those with SA trauma may also find certain portions of this podcast triggering. Please be safe and use your discernment when listening. Thank you so much, and here's the show. To this computer. And Gabby, you should be able to do a local recording now too.
Okay, did it start?
Yeah, I think you got it.
Yay, okay, good.
Sick. All right. Ba-da-da. Who is... Okay, sorry. Let's see here. J Seal Music. All right. I guess I'm just gonna go ahead and start this off, okay? Everybody good? All right,
Yeah,
sweet.
go for it.
Rock on.
Awesome.
All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Eternal Void, but with Jazz podcast. Today we are talking with Jonathan about Twin Peaks and other Lynchian goodness. Jonathan is a high school history teacher from South Carolina. He is a scatterbrained master of none who has played for several bands since his high school days, playing drums, bass, and keyboards, and is recently taken to making disgusting industrial noises. And I can say they are pretty badass. But yeah, anyway, Jonathan enjoys music, horror movies, anime, cooking, and spending time with animals. His most recent hyperfixation is professional wrestling, lifting weights, and King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard. Jonathan, welcome to the Eternal Void, but with Jazz, or welcome back, I should say. You were with us on our first iteration, and thank you so much for coming on. How are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. Thank you for having me up here. I'm excited for this. This has been ever since I finished the series, it's like been on my mind off and on. So this will be a nice little outlet to talk about stuff.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking too. Like, Gabby and I just finished watching Twin Peaks: The Return, and I had watched all of Twin Peaks when around the time that I first moved, and then I had kind of taken a break, and The Return had been on my radar for years and years and years, and I kept putting it off, and I finally just rewatched it. My mind is absolutely blown. I've got so many ideas, but none of them are like anything more than like the loosest Jello mold of an idea. So I think it's something we can play with, and I think I'd really like to hear y'all bounce ideas off one another too, because I know y'all have got some thoughts. So jumping right in, the first thing I wanted to ask you, in case I forget, you've got a tattoo lined up, Twin Peaks related. Can we talk about that for a second?
Oh yeah, I'm so stoked for this. It's something that popped into my head like the night we watched the episode that the scene came from, and it's like been in my head off and on ever since, which has been about a year now, I guess. Um, and I just went ahead and scheduled it. I was like, shoot, if I haven't been able to stop thinking about it, I may as well go ahead and get it. But it's gonna be uh there's gonna be two like matching identical tattoos, kind of like in a yin and yang fashion, but it's the scenes where Laura Palmer like takes her face off. I think she's in the red room when she does that, but she takes her face off and there's the light behind her face. And then to mirror that on the other arm, it would be the scene where her mom or Judy or whatever she is takes her face off, and instead of it being this light, it's a thing that eats that guy's neck off or whatever.
I am so stoked about that. That scene, the scene with Judy, like that was intense. That was
Yeah.
um yeah, I don't anyway, I wanted to ask about that before I forgot, and definitely the yin yang vibe picking up on that. But yeah, where should we even start with Twin Peaks? I guess for those who don't know, yeah, Gabby, do you want to do like a little fill in on like the origin of Twin Peaks and like where it started, or should I? Or like we really didn't have an outline for this episode, so
Yeah,
enjoy.
yeah. Yeah, I guess I can do like a quick little. I mean, it's kind of tough to summarize all of Twin Peaks, but I will do my best. So, for those of you who have not had the pleasure of watching Twin Peaks yet, first off, I suggest whatever you have planned, put it aside for now and watch Twin Peaks.
Yeah,
Because,
good point. There's going to be some spoilers.
yeah, definitely, yeah, heads up, spoiler warning. We're going to be talking about a lot of the ins and outs of the show. So definitely watch the show first if you haven't already, because it's a good show, and it really is a show that you need to experience firsthand, because so much of it is layered with symbolism, and so much of it is how the audience interacts with it. So definitely check it out. So Twin Peaks is essentially a mystery of mysteries. It starts when a young girl from the town of Twin Peaks is unfortunately murdered, and her body is discovered, and the FBI is called into town to investigate what seems to be kind of your run of the mill murder of this homecoming queen who everybody in this small town happens to know in one way or another. And as this FBI agent, known as Dale Cooper, investigates this case, things start to get a little strange. The town, it's quirky and idyllic on the surface, but it's hiding some deeper secrets and some unsavory aspects. And what seems to be like this perfect town really, it has some secrets, as does our unfortunate victim, Laura Palmer. And as Dale Cooper goes out and investigates, he learns that there's actually this whole metaphysical war, for lack of a word, going on between good and evil. And everybody in the town is in some way influenced or connected to this much larger mystery. So that's kind of a quick little introduction into what Twin Peaks is and why an esoteric podcast might want to talk about it, because it really is inspired by a lot of different folklore and mythology. I mean, just right off the bat, there is Thelemic lore in there, a lot of Western esotericism, theosophical belief is in there. Tibetan Buddhism plays a huge role. Hinduism, Christianity. If you can think of it, there's probably some reference to it. So if you are sort of like an esotericist, I highly recommend checking it out, because it's kind of like an Easter egg hunt for different metaphysical ideas, theories, and philosophies without ever necessarily saying one is the true truth behind the mystery. Info dump over.
Not an info dump at all. No, that's a really great summation. And yeah, I guess like what I was thinking too is like the original Twin Peaks came out in what, like 1990, and ran for two regrettably short seasons. The first season I think was 8 episodes. The second season got a little bit more of a proper treatment. I think 22 episodes, maybe a little bit more. And then that was it. They canceled it. And they canceled it on a bit of a cliffhanger. And the studio told the showrunners and director, it's like, well, we'll give you a movie. You know, you can do a movie with this to close things up. And they were like, well, that's super great of you, but we're going to make a prequel. So the movie was the prequel, and it was I haven't seen the movie, so feel free to like fill me in on that, but let me know how that plays into it. We can talk about that. And then like the movie was the prequel, and then that was it for like it was this cultural meme for 20 some odd years. Just and then like the whole mystery with like who killed Laura Palmer was supposed to be a MacGuffin that went through the whole series, but studio forced them to give that an answer sometime, I think, in season 2 early on, so that changed things. But then in what, like 2017, they came out with Twin Peaks: The Return and got Showtime to give them, what was it, 18 episodes, Gabby? 18 or 19? Yeah, 19 episodes where they came back and picked up where the original show cliffhanged on and tried to close that up. So we'll try and cover, I think we're going to kind of focus a little bit on The Return, but in order to do that, I think we'll have to give some backstory on the original show.
Oh yeah, for sure. And I definitely recommend going back and watching Fire Walk with me, because it will make a lot of the things that happen in The Return make a lot more sense. Definitely.
Okay, yeah, because you and I just finished watching The Return, and I'm still confused on so much. Like, and I think a lot of that was like the very like sublimated storytelling where like certain arcs in The Return could have been shown in their completion in like under 5 minutes of screen time, but they were divided up between those 18 episodes, like 30 seconds here, a minute here. So you really like, oh, it was very sublimated. You didn't really think about it. You just absorbed it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think part of why it has that feeling is, and I might be wrong about this, but I think it was actually filmed almost like a movie. So like it was filmed almost like as this one long continuous thing, and then what the scenes were divided into the episodes after the fact.
Oh, that makes
So
sense.
like, yeah, so like I think that's part of the reason why, and a lot of people sometimes complain that the first couple episodes of The Return are kind of slow and kind of confusing. But like when you look at it as like a whole arc over the whole 18 episodes, it makes a lot more sense why it's like that.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. Like, my partner at the time, when like in 2017, was like you know, check this out. It's Twin Peaks: The Return. I was like, that's cool. I haven't seen any of this, so I'll sit down and check it out. And like those first couple episodes, I was like, everybody remembers like Mr. Jackpots and the hello. Like, I just remember being so annoyed at not knowing what the hell was happening and him just screaming hello for like what seemed like an hour. And I was like, I'm done with this show. I'm walking away. But I'm so glad I came back. But like, oh, go
Can
ahead.
I step in really quick?
Yeah.
I might be wrong on this, but the like the vocal cadence for his hellos, because it's like ingrained in my memory now, it sounds like the same vocal cadence from the vocal run from the Wicked song. Da 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 da.
Oh my gosh, I love that.
Wait, did we just tie Wicked into Twin Peaks?
I
That
didn't
is
mean to.
perfect.
It makes sense because of all of the Wizard of Oz references in Twin Peaks.
Hmm.
That's
Mind blown.
amazing. Wait, when did Wicked come out? Um,
I know
that's
the
the
book is kind
musical,
of
right?
old.
Yeah, it's been a minute. Okay, so it premiered in 2003. Totally valid. Yeah, we've got another guest coming up in a couple weeks, Gabby, whose some of their work references Wicked as well. So,
Ooh.
yeah, I wanted to look that up. Wow, that's really cool. Yeah, and I guess, yeah, so like, what, the end of Twin Peaks in 1991, like, Agent Dale Cooper, what, he steps into, like, this esoteric, otherworldly, outer dimensional place called the Black Lodge. And he's essentially stuck there for 25 years. And then when he comes back in The Return, he is, for the good majority of the Returns run, he is a character named, what, Dougie Jones? Who is just like this complete, like, mindless, bumbling, like, Yeah, just I hate to use the word like nincompoop, but that's the word that wants to come out of my mouth. And he just kind of stands there. He has like really no agency. Um, and everybody just kind of does everything for him, like without question. And that fascinated me. And I was like, what is going on with this? Did you all have any thoughts on what was going on there? Like,
I don't know if I have too many intelligent thoughts on Dougie, but I came around to him. I was starting to get frustrated, just like you were. I think I was starting to get frustrated, like, all right, he's an idiot. Like, where's Coop? What's going on? But the scene in the desert when the mob guys were gonna kill him, but he has a dream that he has a pie in the box or whatever it was, and that's the thing that they save him. They're like, "Oh, you're a hero." I was like, "Okay, they're really cooking here with this. They've got something going." And I was from that point on, I was like, whatever the show just has to do for the rest of however many episodes there are, I'm totally on board with whatever. Do it.
I
that
love
is,
that. Yeah, that is definitely one of my favorite scenes from The Return as well because it's so funny from start to finish, like every second. And if you haven't seen this scene, look it up. Like it's phenomenal.
is that the one where he had like the check and the pie? And okay, yeah. Okay, I gotcha. Yeah, I just like, I don't know. Like, I saw a video essay a few years ago on this, and where the essayist was like positing that like um, the show creators, like I guess primarily David Lynch, were commenting on like TV's like I guess like third or fourth golden age, whichever one like we just had, like commenting on shows like The Sopranos or things of that were real popular for like I don't know like 2005ish to like 2000 like 18 or 19ish, right? Where it's like you kind of had like these inept like masculine figures who were like very emotionally damaged, kind of just driving the plot, and everybody was kind of just like doing whatever these damaged masculine figures thought was a good idea. And I really feel like David Lynch like drug that out to its natural conclusion with the Dougie Jones arc, and not only drug it out, but like rubbed our faces in it, like almost to like a comedic level to where like this archetype will never appear on TV again after I'm done with it.
I think the more recent example that like visually it looked like to me was like Breaking Bad.
Yes.
It kind of gave me like I wouldn't say that they were poking fun at or they were trying to like parody it or whatever, but there was like that DNA was in it, I think, like you were saying. And even visually with it being the desert and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, no, good point. I haven't seen Breaking Bad, but that sounds like it fits the yeah, definitely fits that motif as well. And like, another show that kind of fits that motif, or at least maybe it did. I haven't seen it in a while. It would be like something like The Simpsons too, right? Or like Family Guy. So, but comedy imitates life and all of that stuff. Um, this is kind of just an open forum. Anybody has anything they want to talk about, feel free to jump in at any time. We'll fix it up with editing magic. Um,
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I think since we started with Dougie Jones, maybe we should go through like a couple of the other kind of like core characters of the series. I know Jonathan wanted to talk about Ben Horn a
yes.
little bit, who is a fascinating figure, and his arc is probably one of the most unusual. Like he's one of like the few characters that I feel gets something of a redemption arc in a way, but it's not your typical redemption arc. So I'm gonna end that there and turn it over to Jonathan.
Well, yeah, for Ben, I had questions because I wasn't sure, um, what they were actually trying to do with him versus like what I got out of it. And plus me being like a straight dude, maybe like have a different opinion on it that might not be the I wouldn't say like correct one, but the targeted one. I don't know. But it does feel like throughout the whole show with everything that he did in the earlier parts and everything going on and how awful he was, and then they never came out and really said he's a good dude, but they like gradually show him doing all these things and acting differently, and they just make him really cool. You know, like they make him like a cool character, even if he's not quote unquote good. So I was interested in that and kind of looking at like what all is going on with that. Because I love it. I love it when shows make a bad guy really cool, and you're like secretly pulling for the bad dude when you know you shouldn't. I think that's like it's really good writing when you can do that, I think.
Yeah, yeah, I totally get what you mean. It's like Ben Horn, like he starts out very much like as an antagonist, right? But yeah, like you said, he's a very realistic antagonist. He's not like this, like twirling his mustache kind of evil guy with like these ridiculous plots. He's this guy, and for those of you who haven't seen the series, he's essentially one of the richest men in Twin Peaks. He might even be the richest. He owns a department store. He owns a hotel. He's pretty much tied up in all kinds of different business around the town. And he also has an illegal business across the border in Canada, where he runs like a casino brothel, essentially. And said casino brothel at one point employed Laura Palmer before her murder. And a whole bunch of things occur. And essentially, his own daughter gets kidnapped and taken into this brothel. And afterwards, he kind of has this mental breakdown where he thinks he's a Confederate soldier. And after that, he has this huge change of heart where he gives up smoking. He's just eating carrots all the time. He's all about saving the environment. And yeah, like I get what you mean. Like his arc, it's like you're not sure like if you should root for him because it sort of shows like even the worst person can change, but like at the same
Yeah,
time there are like those questions like did he really change? Like because he never really faces accountability
he
at
never
all. Like
does.
like he never gets punished. Literally the only person who suffers for his actions is Audrey, his
Yeah.
daughter. So it is like this kind of weird thing where like is it enough that he just kind of moves on?
But and even in season two, I didn't towards the end of season two when he was doing all that stuff, I really thought I thought it was underhanded. I thought it was like an act, with the save the environment stuff. I thought I can't remember the name of the woman uh who owned the mill or whatever that was like trying to
Catherine.
Catherine, yeah. So I thought he was just doing all that stuff just to kind of underscore or like get rip the rug out from under the foot of Catherine or whatever. But then in return, he like comes back and he's like kind of solemn and he's like seems like he's actually trying to do the right thing without any sort of like other motives behind it. And it seems like I think he was faking it in season two, and it's like he might have literally faked it until he made it. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah, because it kind of brings up like what does it mean to be a good person? Like is it having like these good thoughts? Like is it like an internal thing or is it more like what you do? Like could you be like Ben Horn and have kind of like this corrupt heart, but like you're outwardly doing good things? Like is by doing that, does that over time turn you good? Which I think in some ways is inspiring in an odd way that you can become good even if you're like a bad person because then it shows like okay like this doesn't have to be a permanent thing like there's hope.
Yeah. And he wasn't just like a bad dude. He was like an international human trafficker, basically.
Yeah,
Uh,
like he was like
so
the worst.
yeah, he wasn't just like tying women up to railroad tracks or whatever. It was like three or four steps beyond that.
Yeah,
Damn. Yeah, when you
yeah, and
put it like
again,
that, like, yeah, he really was. Yeah, he was a pretty bad dude.
and he got away with all of it like like the only thing is he eventually like loses the casino because like some guy, Jean Renault, decides to like take it out from under him. But otherwise, like if that had never happened, he'd probably still be owning it.
Yeah, and I mean, like, there's definitely like, and David Lynch likes to play with the viewers like that, right? Like, I think
Mm-hmm.
if I recall correctly, that was a pretty big plot point of like season one and maybe the beginning of season two was like Laura Palmer, like this high school like prom queen who was just murdered, was both like I think she was like selling coke on the side,
Yep.
but also driving for Meals on Wheels, right?
Mhm.
So like two things can definitely be true, but then again, that's a little bit different than like international human trafficking as well.
Right.
But oh, my brain is puzzling over that now. I think I think Ben's mental breakdown was very interestingly shown, and I this might be a good point to bring in like Dr. Jacoby as well,
Mm-hmm.
or at least mention him because damn, I remember he had something to say in like season two about Ben's mental breakdown, and like he just needed to like play it out, and like he was essentially like drawing out like his own internal like constellation of parts of himself on this like battlefield of Gettysburg with the little tiny wooden soldiers. At least I think it was Gettysburg, probably.
It was Gettysburg.
Okay, yeah. Um, wild. I've been there. Yeah, and then like he was essentially battling himself for all to see. Completely like quote unquote off his rocker. Pardon the colloquialism. Like mental health is serious. Um, but this was like the late '80s, early '90s, and it was definitely portrayed in a certain way, right? But I mentioned Dr. Jacoby. He was a rather eccentric character in season one and two, and eccentric in a much different way in season three. But he had the interesting quirk of wearing 3D glasses wherever he went, like one blue and one red. Does anybody have any thoughts on that? Why that might have been, or what they were trying to say there? I'm kind of lost on it as well, but it's something I've always just been like, damn, I don't know what's going on here. But somebody said once it was like they were trying to say that like he was the only one of the few people in town that saw like the duality or saw the depth within everyone. Could be something, but I don't
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, sorry,
I've
go ahead.
seen I've seen stuff like that. I listened to one other podcast that had a lot of really interesting ideas about that and has like they tied that in with like his addiction, or not really addiction, but his like hyper fixation of like the trop like Hawaii and like the tropicals and all that stuff, which is like a stark contrast from the dreary Pacific Northwest, like cloudy, rainy, dark all the time type stuff. Um, I can't remember what the end of that equation was, but there was something there. I feel like there is something there. I don't know if I'm quite smart enough to put two and two together, but it does seem like pointed.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a duality, right? Like even like the entire show is all about dualities, like Twin Peaks, right? And then you've got like the opening credit scene with that awesome music by what Angelo Badalamenti. I think yeah, like has like the two waterfalls with like that awesome crane shot going over it too. So like they're not subtle about polarities and dualities, which I always thought was pretty cool with the show.
Yeah, absolutely. Like a lot of the characters even have like a literal double. Like, for example, Laura has a cousin, Maddie, who is literally exactly like her, just in a brown wig. Um, so yeah, like there really is like this idea of duality and how I think like with Dr. Jacoby, like you said, he is sort of like one of the few people who sees through, I guess, kind of like this illusionary idea that Twin Peaks is just like perfect. Like it does have like that underside to it. Um, But unfortunately, I think where he kind of falls short is that he kind of uses that information more for his own like enjoyment, like instead of like actually helping people. And I think it's really interesting how in the return he comes back and is more like trying to wake people up to kind of like the issues that are going on. It's almost like he did this 360 or 180. And yeah, it's just interesting.
Yeah.
Now,
I love the gold shovel, like shovel your way out of the shit, Dr. Jacoby. Just every time he popped up and he was doing his little public address, I was 100% tuned in.
now, for those who don't remember, like namely me, what was he like in like season two, where I think he was a primary character? Like as far as like using that information for his own entertainment. Because Jonathan, you and I have kind of touched on this before, where he was kind of a dick apparently, but I just don't remember.
Well, I don't think I would say that. I think earlier on in season one, there was the implication that his like relationship with Laura being her psychiatrist, is that the right one?
I think so. Yeah.
Was not 100% professional, you know?
Okay.
So there's that. He's got that on his ledger from that. I think I don't know if they ever came out and said 100%, but I think that's the implication. I don't know about in season two. I think people thought that he was manipulating Nadine in that whole situation. But again, I can't remember if that was actually it or if that was just people's readings of it.
Yeah, I
I,
think he's definitely like a little sketchy. Like, and I think like I think there's even like a scene where he like kind of admits to I think Donna and James like I'm not a good person. Like I'm a bad person. And I think that awareness, like maybe that awareness is why he does kind of shift later in the series. Because at one point, when Maddie, Laura's cousin, does come into the series, they dress her up as Laura to kind of trick Dr. Jacoby into coming out so they can sneak into his office and steal some stuff. And I think after that happens, because while he's out there, he gets attacked by someone. And initially, we don't know who it is, but later we find out. But I think that attack was kind of a turning point for him. And I think, in a way, almost imagining that Laura was still alive kind of did something for him, because Laura is sort of this like she has this duality to her, but she's almost like this angelic figure to some of the characters. Like it's almost like she is this force, this like metaphysical force that inspires people to change and do better.
Yeah. I always see people using this term that somebody is haunting the narrative.
Mm.
And for the most part, they never get that quite right. But I think Laura Palmer like is is an example where like she's literally the whole show, she's literally haunting the whole show. Like, yeah, you couldn't do that better.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, she is like her theme song, Laura's theme song. Like I highly recommend going back and watching like the first two seasons and like count how many times you hear that theme song. And just like imagine every time you hear it, like Laura is there, like or her essence is there. And it just goes to show like how like it all centers around her.
oh, I've never really thought of it like that before. Oh, that is wild. Um, and maybe not just yet, but I definitely want to talk about the end and like what Coop does with Laura Palmer because I know there's going to be questions on that. And like, yeah, I mind fried. That was one of those points y'all just made that like completely like just swept everything out of my brain. Um, cool.
I love it.
I also wanted to, I thought it was appropriate. I went to the grocery store and I got myself a mini cherry pie
Yes.
that I
Yeah.
thought, you know, I would indulge myself a little bit while you guys were discussing, or y'all were discussing things. And
Hell yes, you
this
should.
is just a grocery store food line, mini, 4-inch cherry pie. But uh, I'll let you know.
Yeah, please do. Oh my gosh, I hate to say this, but I miss the Carolinas and I miss those grocery stores and like trying to find the tofu and nobody knowing what tofu is, and it's magical.
So, where both of you live, is there just an overabundance of sweets everywhere, or is that a Southern problem?
Um,
I mean,
Go ahead, Gabby. Yeah.
yeah, we definitely have quite a few different bakeries. And like where I live, we have a large like Polish population. So like there are these little like Polish bakeries like everywhere, and
Oh,
they're so good. They're absolutely delicious. So yeah, we do have a lot of sweets around here too.
yeah, and like, bro, being from the being up in the Midwest, we've got so many sweets. Like, we've got a chain of places around here that does nothing but bake pies, and they're like a chain, right? And you can just like walk in and like get a whole pie, or you can like order pies ahead of time, or like, then there's so many good donut places around here. It's pretty phenomenal. But I don't know, like the rural, remote dreariness of Twin Peaks, there's something kind of magical about like those like sandy pinewood roads, back roads in South Carolina too, right? And those like little mini cherry pies.
There is. There's little slices when you're driving through, especially in the week and a half that we get of like a true fall, like an autumn.
Yeah.
There's places you drive around and you're like, this is from a Hallmark movie. Maybe, just this part though. They shot here and then they went everywhere else for the for the rest of the movie.
Absolutely. Um, See, I'm trying to think, Gabby, what we could jump off of from the cherry pie. There's definitely a lot of cherry pie referenced in Twin Peaks.
For sure.
Trying to think like what other food references are there? Like there's coffee, cherry pie, donuts. Um,
Mm.
Oh, corn, cream corn.
is cream corn a thing?
Yeah, Garmin Bozia.
Wait, what is cream corn in Twin Peaks?
It's so like when the spirits of the Black Lodge like are essentially like torturing people, like, psychologically or whatever. I guess it like builds up in the body, and then like the pain and the suffering, it looks like cream corn. Like it, yeah.
That's little gold nuggets.
Yeah.
It's essentially like Pennywise, Pennywise scares kids,
Yeah.
and he's not going to eat them until they're like at their max, a max scaritude or whatever. Yeah, the Garmin Buzzy is like the pain and suffering equivalent of that. Is like they live off of that stuff. So the bad stuff that happens in Twin Peaks is kind of like feeding those entities or whatever they are.
Oh, that makes sense. How did I miss that on my watch throughs? Was that mentioned in season or in the return at all?
Yeah, that scene where when it's time for Mr. C to go back into the Black Lodge, and he's kind of like resisting it, and he's like driving around, and then he like kind of crashes because he gets sick, and he's like
Yeah, throwing
puking and
up.
stuff.
Yeah.
What he's throwing up is the Garmonbozia. And also it appears when Dougie and Coop make their switch. There's like a pile of it on the floor.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. I'm gonna have to Google this real quick. Things I did not know. Um, Armin Bozia.
Now
Yep.
I want to say the scene. Um, what is Ben Horn's son that's causing trouble? What's that guy's name?
Oh,
Richard.
uh, in the
Richard.
return,
No,
the young guy,
return.
the Richard.
Yeah, so the scene where Richard's freaking out and he blows through that intersection and he demolishes that kid.
Oh yeah.
So that's like I think that somebody pointed out like he owed Garmin Bozia or something. So that was like it was destined that he was gonna smash through that kid and cause pain and suffering for that woman. And then it continues because he goes and tries to find the woman to keep her from reporting it to the police and stuff, right?
Right, yeah, he tries to like kill her and stuff so she can't report it.
Yeah, and yeah, that brings up a whole lot of stuff too. Like he was Ben Horn's grandson. Was that it?
Yep, yeah, Audrey's kid, with Mr. C
Hmm.
slash Bob.
Oh, when did that happen?
Uh, so remember when she was in the coma?
Oh,
So like at the end of season two, so like this part's like off screen. So like at the end of
okay,
season two, Audrey's kind of in like her activism era. Like
okay.
she really wants to like make a positive difference. And she essentially like chains herself to this bank vault um to like protest and everything. And while she's there, Pete and the other old guy, I forget his name. He was like the bad guy who was after Josie for a while. They have like this box, right? Or Andrew, there he goes. Yeah, he has like this box, like it's like a puzzle box, and they have this key, and they want to like figure out which safety deposit box the key goes to, and they
Okay.
go and they open it, and the guy who had sent them the box, it was basically a trap, like a
Oh,
revenge trap, and there's like a bomb in the safety deposit box. So as soon as it opens, the whole bank blows up. And so since Audrey is there, she ends up getting hurt. We don't actually see this, but it's said that she's taken to the hospital. And when Coop ends up going into the Black Lodge and Mr. C comes out, it's said in some of the supplemental materials that one of the first places he went was he saw Audrey while she was in her coma.
oh no. Okay,
Yeah,
gotcha. Oh, yeah. Fuck Richard. Fuck Mister. Yeah.
yeah, they're pure evil. Like they're literally about as evil as you can probably get.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll be honest, like rewatching those or watching The Return with you, like some of the hardest scenes to watch were the scenes with Richard. But like I also like well, yeah, I don't know. I had a thought on there, but it kind of just disappeared. But where were we going with Audrey and the Garmin Bows? Yeah, yeah, sorry about that.
Yeah, we were kind of talking about like food and kind of like what food I think symbolizes in the series. And so like the Garmonbosia is like the pain and suffering, but I think like food shows up a lot, and I think sometimes it can represent desire in a way. Like if you notice the types of characters who are like always eating are people like Ben Horn, Jerry Horn, um, I hate to say it, even Coop.
Yeah.
And I think that kind of hints at that duality of Cooper, because I think when you first watch the series and you're introduced to Dale Cooper, I think he comes across as like this perfect knight in shining armor, like this ideal. But I think even Cooper has that duality to him, because even though Mr. C had Bob alongside with him, it was pretty clear that Mr. C was the one driving the ship, and Bob was more like in the back seat. It wasn't like Leland where Bob would kind of like take over. So I think even like people like Cooper, and I think it's almost like a reminder, like all these characters have desires, and some of these desires can be normal and some of them are not normal, and it's sort of the goodness of the characters that stops them from engaging in, you know, maybe the more antisocial desires, and instead turns it towards the more like healthy. Like it's healthy to eat a slice of cherry pie and enjoy a cup of coffee. It's not healthy to indulge in other things.
Yeah.
Oh,
Gab, you mentioned the knight in shining armor thing, and there's like I don't know if you all caught this, but there's actually tons of like Arthurian references in the Twin Peaks stuff,
are
especially in
there?
the Return, actually.
Oh
Oh,
yeah,
please
I
tell us.
love, yeah, definitely go on that because I would love to talk more about the Arthurian references because you're right, there are tons of them. And I don't think they get as much attention as some of the other references.
Yeah, it's not as it doesn't play as directly, I guess, into this the vibe and the spookiness and the plot and stuff. But there are these references and stuff that they come across. Doesn't he live on like Lancelot Court or something in the Return?
Yep.
And even Pete makes like several references to where King Arthur is buried in Glastonbury. Is that true? Is that
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So there's that stuff. I don't know how heavily that plays into all of it, but it does make Coop like the white knight of the show, and whether or not he should be or not, I guess is what the whole one of the theses what of like the whole show is should he be?
Yeah, absolutely. Because yeah, like the sort of like knight in shining like knight in shining armor archetype is, yeah, it is sort of like this. It's meant to be like this purely good character, and I think there are sort of references throughout the series of like, okay, Coop, you might be like this courageous, tough guy in this world, but there's so much more going on beyond you, and if you're not fully prepared for all of that, it might mess you up a little bit. And yeah, like there are quite a few references. One in particular that has been a personal rabbit hole for me has been the concept of the well maidens. So in Arthurian lore, like the concept of the Holy Grail, right? So the Holy Grail, that idea came from a much earlier set of myths where it was believed that there are these sort of mystical women who would live in these wells just like scattered throughout the countryside. And if you were like a traveler and you're walking, you're traveling, you're tired, you could go to these well maidens and they would feed you and give you a place to stay, and they were very kind and welcoming and hospitable. But then a new king sat upon the throne, and he started to take advantage of that and to really steal from them, and to hurt the well maidens. And I think in Twin Peaks, Laura in a lot of ways represents one of these well maidens because she is this sort of healing figure for a lot of the characters. For example, Johnny, Audrey's older brother, who has a mental disability, like she takes care of him. She does the Meals on Wheels. So she's literally going out and feeding people and taking care of people, but they're not taking care of her. Nobody is there for Laura. And one of the big symbols of the show, of when you're entering into the Black Lodge, is this like kind of big puddle of scorched engine oil that looks like a corrupted, dirty well. So, like, the well has been corrupted. And the idea behind the well maidens is the reason why the world is such a mess right now is because of the assault against the well maidens. And until we make it right with them, until we make it right with the land, it'll always be a wasteland because the abundance comes from them.
What was the poem that the woodsman gave over the radio? It was like something about drinking from the well.
Yep, this is the water, and this is the well. Here, let me actually look it up. Let's see. Okay. This is the water, and this is the well. Drink full and descend. The horse is the white of the eyes and dark within. So again, another reference to this sort of corrupted well, or almost like anti well maiden, like a source of grossness. Almost like with the Garmonbosia, There's sort of like this idea of like corn is abundance, but this is corrupt corn.
Just wow. Yeah.
I think that episode 8, is the one that like basically lit the internet on fire. It's you've got uh David Lynch essentially saying that the thing that has brought all of this hell to earth is like the atomic bomb testings, and then you have Nine Inch Nails.
For sure.
Okay. So this might be a good time to like go into like what do we think happened at the end of Twin Peaks? Like so recap my understanding of it as kind of a novice. Laura is murdered, but she was created by the fireman and a goddess, to essentially exist and like start this chain of events that would lead us here. At the end of Twin Peaks in 1992 ish, um, Dale Cooper is trapped in the Black Lodge, and his alter ego, pure shadow self, Mr. C, is running amok for 25 years. Um, and then Twin Peaks The Return, Coop comes back, but he's not Coop for like the first 3/4 of the season. He is a guy named Dougie Jones, and then he sticks his finger in an electrical socket. He goes into a coma. He comes out and he remembers everything about who he is. And then like it picks back up with the search for Laura Palmer. And then Coop essentially faces his shadow self. The shadow self gets shot and dies, finally, with the help of from the Green Glove guy. Long story. Google it. Check it out if you're not familiar. It's Green Glove guy's amazing. And then Coop goes into like a alternate mystical portal to go in and get Laura Palmer and essentially then bring her back into the world from the land of the dead. And it looks to me like he breaks all of reality in doing so. But he does come back and bring somebody. What the hell happened there?
Who wants to go first?
Well, I had I had two thoughts that I wanted to put out. That was spurred on by something Shell said a second ago, talking about going back to episode 8. So looking at all of that, and even the stuff that happens in the last couple of episodes, it seems like one of the big like points of Twin Peaks as a whole is that there's always uh multiple times people are interacting through time, right? Through different dimensions, or however you want to put it. It seems like there's always um two things that kind of go against each other. They kind of contradict each other, that are both true at the same time. There's the quote, I think it was Mike that asked who, like in The Return, when he says, "Is it future or is it past?" And then the last thing that Coop says to end the show is, "What year is it?" Um, but then all of that, but then I was thinking about, with it seems like Laura Palmer being sent to Earth as a response to Bob and all of this stuff, and Laura is the one. You have the quote about, um, "We are in a dream" or something. Who is the dreamer? So like with all of that stuff, and then with Coop is essentially being the one that's been given a mission by the fireman or whoever that put a lot of that into motion. It's like, well, how the hell did he like mess up, or did he? I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's like it's complicated because in like a way, I guess going back and saving Laura, because her role really was to be like this force against evil. In a way, what Cooper did would be like if you're like in like a Christian worldview, like going back in time and like stopping the crucifixion. It's like, yeah, you stopped this horrible thing from happening, but then everything after it is just going to radically change because you kind of like took away the whole point. So it's almost like you in a way he ruined like the game or like the plan that all these higher beings had. And I think in a way that that new universe was like, okay, we have to kind of figure out what do we do with this so we don't like throw everything out of whack, because I think some of why the return is so much like tonally like darker and more overtly like, yeah, like there's a lot of bad shit going on, is because of the undoing of what happened to Laura. It's almost like the goodness was stripped away, like it was taken away somewhere else to this other universe, and then the evil was just kind of able to proliferate, um, with all the timey wiminess going on. So I think in a way, like there was this crisis going on, and unfortunately, Cooper got swept up in it, not realizing the full consequences of his actions.
But I'm I might be a little naive on this. A lot of people seem to think that Cooper failed. I don't think he did necessarily. I don't know how, and I can't really support that. But like everything seems to have been orchestrated by the firemen, like down to like the green glove guy and how Mr. C was going to go out, and it seems like everything. Yeah, like Cooper was essentially acting as the hand of the firemen in a lot of ways. And I don't. So if Cooper failed, then like that was the intent of the firemen, and I don't see that. I think there's something else going on there, and I just don't know what it is, if that makes sense. Like, whenever, like, Laura comes back with, like, the alternate name, like, what was the name she came back of? Like, something under
Yeah,
Carrie Page.
Carrie Page, that's right. I wanted to say Carrie Underwood.
I
Um,
heard that.
yeah, yeah. Um, like, there's all of, like, those references to, like, her screaming, like this guttural primal scream, right? And maybe like either like that's the scream of like the world finally like being heard and finally like coming across from the other side is like one thing I thought of on that. Or another thing could be like that is Carrie Page like dissolving in this reality and remembering her reality as Laura, and just like that pure like shock to the ego, or shredding of the ego, almost like a second death almost, um, which could also be like that primal scream of the world, like crying out for, crying out in pain for all the bad crap that's happened, especially since the A-bombs went off, as the show creators like to point out, right? But I don't know. I wish I could support my gut feeling on this better. And again, maybe it's naive and maybe it's overly optimistic.
Actually, uh, I think I'm kind of like in between. I'm with you, Shell. I kind of want to look. I want to have like an optimistic viewpoint of it, and I have reasons that I think so. But I also understand. So the argument for him failing would be that he probably didn't follow directions exactly because of his ego. And
Oh,
so he probably made a step along the way that he thought was right, but was not the was not the right step. Probably like Gabby was saying, like taking Laura Palmer from that time was probably the that probably is not what the fireman meant. Um, I don't know for sure. But I've also seen there was like a quote from Mark Frost, and I can't remember uh what ancient story or whatever it was. It was like a Greek philosophy or something. But basically like Coop is an FBI agent, so in this world he understands and he's like the law, but then he's stepping into a world that he doesn't understand. So messing with that is like his great like hubris, like is failing him basically.
oh,
I can't remember which thing that was.
That makes sense. Yeah, again, I might be projecting like some of that White Knight onto, didn't even occur to me that Coop could have made a mistake or failed.
And I do think it's sort of meant to be a little ambiguous. Like it, like you said, like you can kind of see it either way. Like he did succeed or he did fail. And maybe it's something where, again, like both of these things can be true. Like maybe in some ways he did succeed and maybe in others he failed. Like I think, for example, with Laura and like her final scream, I do think it was sort of like a scream of like remembrance or awakening because in a lot of David Lynch's other works, he sort of plays with this idea of adopting different identities because what the life you're living is just so extreme. Like for example, Lost Highway is about a guy who finds out that his like wife or girlfriend is cheating on him, so he kills her and gets arrested. And while he's like waiting on death row, he creates this whole alternate life in his head where he kind of like saves her from this, awful guy. And I think that idea could be playing here as well, where Cooper did succeed in waking Carrie up from her own dream where she was Carrie Page and not Laura Palmer. And, she didn't remember what had happened to her, but in the same way, she didn't remember who she was either. Um, but in the same way, I wonder, maybe Cooper did take it a step too far, or maybe in a way, I hate to say it, like if you play with fire, you get burned. So maybe he was just sort of a sacrifice. Um, like you save Laura, but at the cost of yourself, because I guess the universe demands some kind of balance or payment in a way.
Yeah, I mean, like whenever Coop came back, like we like noticed like his name changed and a lot of like reality changed. And yeah, I mean, like if you're going to like bring someone back from the dead as if they'd never died, like that's going to require like a lot of erasers on the page and a lot of rewriting of the script, right?
Plus,
Yeah.
I don't know how many, like if you all have seen all of David Lynch's works, but how many of his movies ends with good conquering evil? I think is it just Blue Velvet?
Yeah, a lot of his endings are kind of ambiguous, or it's like, yeah, this bad thing happened and kind of here are your consequences. Yeah, it's really not. Yeah.
Yeah. This is this is this is my personal thoughts on it, and this might be just like me coping or something, just because I want like especially now since we know that there's never going to be any more ever, so we're stuck. This is what we have for finality. But I tend to have a more optimistic view. I think, like Shell says of it, and here's like the two things I think. There's this. So this is my thought process. I'm thinking the show plays on the idea of um like cycles a lot and patterns and things like that. So my whole big meta take on the whole thing is that all of it is like a series of different cycles that are repeating in on themselves over and over and over again. And the end of the return is part of the cycle. But I think, and I don't want to spoil it for Shell, but I think the true end of this series in my heart, the way that I believe it, the true end of this series is the end of Firewalk with Me. So somehow from the end of the return, there's like another, it loops back around to Firewalk with Me and still not a Disney ending, but
Oh, go ahead and spoil it for me. I'm curious.
uh so essentially this probably doesn't spoil like the stuff in the movie because the movie is insane.
Okay.
But the last scene of Firewalk with Me is throughout the movie she keeps talking about how she says that the angels are never coming forward because they've gone away. And so the last like scene in Fire Walk with Me is she's sitting in the red room on the couch, but she's like beautiful, her hair's all done up. She looks like really put together. and like somebody that hasn't experienced all of the stuff that she's experienced, and she's looking up and there's an angel floating above her. And I think, now I might be wrong on this, but I think the Agent Cooper is also behind her with his hand on her shoulder. So like they're both there together. The angel has come down and presumably like salvation or something. The closest thing that you can get to salvation in the Black or the White Lodge, I guess.
I like that ending better. And it is a beautiful scene. Yeah, Michelle, like I highly recommend checking it out. Like it is like I know for me when I saw it for the first time I cried.
Okay, yeah, I'll definitely check it out. I'll put that on my list of things to watch soon. That's oh wow.
Yeah, there's maybe four movies I think, not to be like I'm because I'm not, but not to be like macho dude or whatever, but there's maybe four movies that have genuinely made me cry. And that one like not just like crying, but I think I blubbered.
Aw, no shame in that. I totally get it. Okay, yeah, I'll definitely put that on my list. I'm kind of a big baby when it comes to like horror and scary stuff. So like some of the stuff in The Return was a lot for me, and I've been kind of iffy on David Lynch stuff since then. But um, I'll just practice my deep breathing exercises, and I'll get through it, and I'll be fine. I'll be good. I feel like there was something else. Covered a lot of ground. Was there anything you feel like we missed, Gabby?
Let me just check out. Ooh, we have a couple questions. Uh Something about the talking heads and the connections between Twin Peaks and the talking heads.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
yeah, please tell us about that.
So this is really random and it's kind of doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But I had felt, and this is just a personal thing for me, but I got back into Twin Peaks and restarted this series over and stuff about the same time that I got super into Talking Heads and watched the Stop Making Sense like concert movie. And for whatever reason, like spiritually, those two things kind of feel tied together. And I feel like there's a lot of like I don't know, there's just a lot of uh meshing of like I guess aesthetic or maybe not symbolism, but just like feel, like emotion and stuff between those two things. Um, and I just feel like you could score a lot of, especially season one of Twin Peaks with music from Talking Heads, and it probably would work out. Um, and I thought that was just a me thing that I was just like, oh, I just got into these two things at about the same time, and I'm seeing similarities. But then like randomly on like Instagram and social media and stuff, I would see people making fan edits of like David Byrne in his big suit, but like in Twin Peaks and stuff like that. So I was like, man, if I'm not the only one having this random thought, then maybe there's something out there that like people are feeling that like there feels like there's some sort of weird connection.
Let's find out. Okay, so there's definitely a few parody tribute videos on YouTube for Talking Heads music with Twin Peaks scenes. Um, oh, okay, I found a thread on Reddit from 8 years ago. So what else did we find? Okay, we'll probably have to edit this out of the podcast, but I'm going to put this in the Zoom chat. This is just surreal. Feel free to 30 seconds, 30 seconds long if you see that link in there.
I love all the fan edits so much.
Um, I'll put that link in the show notes if this makes it into the podcast, but that was enough to convince me there's some sort of spiritual like connection between those two.
That did elicit emotion.
Yes.
That was so cool.
I'll yeah, I'll admit I don't know much about the Talking Heads aside from like their couple really big hits, and then like I think David Byrne did a guest spot on The Simpsons at one point in his big suit, and that's the only reason why I recognize that reference.
Yeah, I got super into them, and do you know who Brian Eno is?
Echo and Bunnyman?
Possibly. I don't know enough to know that.
No,
But
I
he was
don't.
like a music producer that when Talking Heads got really weird, it was because Brian Eno had started producing their stuff.
Ah, okay.
But I think I could be wrong, but I think he was one of the first people to really embrace the digital realm in music production and stuff, and really see how much crazy stuff you could do with that.
Okay. Yeah, I could see that. Oh, it looks like he worked with Devo as well, so that makes sense. Makes a lot of sense.
There's also that funky David Byrne and Saint Vincent album that they put out together. If you all listen to Saint Vincent, I don't.
No, that sounds really cool though. Is it funky?
uh, it's like a lot of it sounds like music that you would hear like show tunes almost.
Really?
There's a couple of bangers, but a lot of it is like really weird, really funky, which Saint Vincent herself is extremely eclectic and uh yeah, I wouldn't even know where to start with that.
Yeah, I always wanted to check her out. I always saw like her signature guitar for sale in various iterations, and it always looked kind of cool. And I wanted to play one, but they were yeah.
I think it's either her dad or her uncle is some sort of blues or jazz like guitar savant type thing. Like
Okay,
really, so she grew up with all of that, and so she's just like a natural. And then of course the biggest part of her music isn't even the guitar, it's all this crazy electronic stuff. So you
yeah.
kind of feel like you're like, what's that scene in Shrek where the kid's like, do the roar, telling Shrek to roar. You're like, Saint Vincent, why don't you play some guitar?
Oh, I love it. I love it. Oh my gosh. Now you had one more question. We can touch on that, and then we'll kind of go out on that. You were saying, do you think the "You Can't Go Back Home" of season three was a product of its time, or would Lynch and Co. have done the same thing if it went on to production today? Let's talk about that. Like, where is this "You Can't Go Home" again theme of season three? Is that what we just talked about, or was there other parts to that?
Yeah, Shell, I think you did touch on that a little bit earlier, talking about how season three felt like it was like a response to how TV was at the time, maybe like a response to like The Sopranos, so or like a response to and I hate this term because I'm a huge horror fan and people use this for horror, but uh, elevated television shows.
Okay.
Things like Breaking Bad or like Severance now would be like one of the examples of like an elevated show that's everything is super artsy fartsy and you have to take it serious, where other TV shows you wouldn't take serious.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
And so a lot of people have said that The Return has that tone because it's kind of like either emulating or parodying. I don't know for sure which way or it could be both at the same time because that seems to be a theme. Um, but definitely like playing on that DNA of those types of shows that are your elevated shows. And so part of that is like, of course, it wouldn't aesthetically look like season one with Coop uh, drinking coffee and eating donuts and hanging out in the sheriff's station. And you wouldn't have Andy doing all sorts of fun stuff. Other than that, other than that one episode where Michael Cera shows up. But yeah, but for the most part, it's like they're making you very aware that you're not watching the first two seasons of Twin Peaks. You're watching something completely different that is like based on it.
Right.
And a lot of that seems really intentional. And when you finally get that moment of like Coop coming back, and there's like the quote where he says, "I am the FBI," and you think from that point on it's all hunky dory, and then well, then the next episode happens.
Hmm. That raises a good point. Yeah, I didn't even like. There's a little bit of like a meta thing going on there with like from the very beginning, it's quite obvious that you're not watching the Twin Peaks you were expecting. Yeah, that does seem to be a pretty pervasive theme within that you can't go home again now. As far as why that is a, I'm going to need a moment to put my brain together on this one. Gabby, do you have any thoughts on this?
Yeah, I think, yeah, I definitely agree with you there that I think it is sort of emulating slash parodying that kind of, yeah, elevated prestige television vibe. It's almost like, I feel like what a lot of like David Lynch's work does is it sort of like plays with your expectations. Like Twin Peaks, like the original two seasons, they look like aesthetically, visually, it looks a lot like the other types of mysteries from that time period, but the subject matter is where it really subverts your expectations. Whereas I think with The Return, it's again another subversion of the viewer's expectation. Not so much like mess with the viewer. Like, I don't think David Lynch is intentionally trying to like upset anybody or like, yeah, like step on anybody's toes, but it's almost like I don't think David Lynch wants you to be comfortable as a viewer because I think like that comfort, that nostalgia, that kind of coziness can make you almost like ignore what he's trying to say. So I think by kind of taking away all of the nostalgia and kind of like the, yeah, the coziness of the original series, it's like you're really confronted with what happens to these characters and the way the cycle again of trauma and pain and destruction has just kind of wreaked havoc for 25 years. And like this is where we are now. It's like no, Twin Peaks is not the way it was because I mean, you had Cooper in the Lodge, you had all these characters kind of going off and doing their own things, and evil was kind of left unchecked for a while.
Hmm. That really almost leans into my musings on the scream of Laura Palmer finally being heard.
Mm.
It's also like the literal you can't go home because at the end when Coop tries to take her home, it's not they're expecting Sarah Palmer to answer the door, right? And then it's not. That's not your that's not your home. Somebody else. I think I read that it's like the person that actually owns the house in real life.
Oh yeah, it is like the actual owner, which I think is so cool.
Yeah. And so of course people have taken that and they've there's a whole meta reading on it where the return like that in the ending parts of the return t takes place in real life and the I've seen a whole bunch of stuff where basically like every time we go back to the show when they bring it back for like season two and they bring it back for the return, you're basically like digging up Laura Palmer and making her go through all of that again, which is the same thing that Coop is doing by taking her back to the house where she was, abused and all of that stuff and making her remember and so all that stuff. And that's a little bit too pie in the sky for me, but I do respect it as a thought process.
Yeah, it definitely is like an interesting thought because even though, yeah, Twin Peaks is fictional, like I think there are a lot of elements of it that are very true to life. And I think there are a lot of like characters and like experiences that the characters go through in the show that a lot of people can relate to and kind of like see themselves in the characters. And It's easy to kind of like say, oh, if I were in Twin Peaks, I wouldn't have ignored what happened to Laura Palmer. I would have been, one of the good ones, because like the whole town, they knew what was happening to her from the very beginning before she ever died. They just kind of went about their lives. But if you look at real life, like that kind of thing happens all the time where people know somebody's in trouble, and it may not be as extreme as what Laura went through, but like they know that somebody's struggling or hurting, and they kind of just look the other way and try to maintain this sense of like peace and just like the veneer without actually digging underneath it and solving the problem.
So true. Oh, I don't know what else to add to that, Gabby. Like, that's, if there's anything to add, this entire, like, brain just got wrapped up in, like, meta narratives and time travel. Yeah, I feel like the end of, The Return all over again, but I think there's something to be said about just not ignoring people who are, like, pinch. I think that's a really go out on that.
Yeah, I think that is a good place to end. Like, don't turn your back on people if they're struggling. Like, even if you yourself, you don't have the tools to help them, find somebody who does. Like, it doesn't have to be you who necessarily fixes the problem. But like, if you see the problem, if you see it, say something.
Yeah, exactly. Like, there's a lot of great organizations out there that you can work with, or, sometimes it just takes like a kind smile or like a helping hand, like to completely change somebody's day. I think that's a good spot to like leave this on. Um, Jonathan, did you have any other thoughts you wanted to share?
Um, I'm so scatterbrained. I should have made like a outline or something because I feel like there's a couple of other thoughts that I have had and I cannot conjure them to the front of my brain right now to get them out of my mouth. Yeah, it's one of those things that's probably like a few dozen different reads that could be valid, and I think that's the point. One thing I just thought about because we're talking about like cycles and patterns and stuff. Um, what a, what about the scene where Sarah's like watching that boxing match? Do you remember that?
Yes, that was something Gabby and I noticed when like I did the rewatch with Gabby. Like, she's just sitting there like what with like multiple full ashtrays of burnt cigarettes and vodka bottles, just watching like somebody get clocked in a boxing ring on repeat while she's chain smoking and drinking.
It just keeps repeating itself. And that's one scene where my wife was like getting like super disturbed by it and she just couldn't wait for the scene to be over because every time it would start back over, it all sounds so gross, like the way they edited the audio and stuff. And she was like, "No, they're not gonna do it one more time." And it just kept going.
Yeah, and I mean that says a lot about like the cycles of pain, like generationally that we get trapped in and individually emotionally, right? And it just really puts it right there on the screen, and how we kind of just get like trapped in our own heads with like the losses and griefs and troubles that we've accumulated through our lives. In which case, with like Sarah Palmer is quite significant, right? Oh, Gabby, did you have anything you wanted to tack on to that, or we can tag this up and wrap it up if you'd like?
Yeah, yeah. I guess it's just kind of interesting. So, like with Sarah Palmer in particular, and one of the core questions of this series is like, who is the dreamer? Like, there's this idea that all of this is existing in somebody's dream, and there are different theories as to who the dreamer could be. But if Sarah Palmer is the dreamer, the idea of like there's this cycle playing over and over again of somebody getting clobbered and back up, like that's kind of like what's happening to Laura. Like, it's just this whole cycle. And is Sarah Palmer the dreamer, just watching Laura die and get reborn and die again and over again, which is kind of horrifying.
And there's like I might be remembering this wrong, but there's like a motif about like a record skipping sort of noise
Mm.
that plays, I think, in the return for a lot of parts. And I think that sound plays whenever Coop grabs Laura from the past. I think when she disappears, you hear that sound play.
Oh yeah, yeah, like the record. Yeah, right when she's getting like kidnapped. Yeah. Yeah, and like they show it in the very beginning of the return, like the record player, and like listen to the sounds, and
Hmm.
it means like it sounds or something like that.
Oh, fascinating. Well, oh, here's to ending cycles, I guess, is what I can say to that. And like, oh, that's a lot. Twin Peaks is amazing. Thank you, everybody. I'm hopefully everybody's in a good headspace now. Um, Jonathan, do you want to tell us about your favorite charity?
Favorite charity. Right now it is doggies and cats. I like to help out at the Florent or I like to help out at our local Humane Society.
Yeah.
Go volunteer and walking the dogs and donating food and things like that. So that's where my head and my heart is really now, is with animals and the earth in general. Treat it good.
I like that. I think that's a good message. Oh, we appreciate you coming on. This has been a blast, and I look forward to more interesting talks with you. And you turned me on to a video game last time we met down. Give me some time, and we'll have another chat about that pretty soon, I think.
I'm very much looking forward to that. I think I'm maybe about 2 hours away from closing out the second one, and
Okay.
all I can tell you is it's like it's an incredible experience.
Yeah, I'm catching that just like maybe like 4 hours into the first one, and I definitely would like to have maybe an episode on that once I get a little bit more into it and you get through it. And yeah, I'm drawing some Twin Peaks parallels too, which I'm sure you'll probably have noticed some more.
There's so many Twin Peaks, so much Twin Peaks DNA in it that that would have to be its own episode.
All right, cool. Well, we look forward to having that episode and wish you all the best in your future endeavors. Where can people find you, or what are you working on? Anything?
Uh, Not working on anything I think that would see the light of day. The only place that I really do anything interesting is my Instagram is the only social that I really use a lot, which is just Jonathan Seal 777. Because I used to be a big Under Oath fan.
Rock on.
So that's how old that account is. But yeah, I've been playing music and stuff. I've got about 20 something projects that are currently ongoing at various levels of completion. That is more therapy than something that maybe would be a formal thing, but it's pretty damn good therapy.
Hell yeah. Well, we fully support this and we wish you all the best in your endeavors. Thank you so much again.
Oh, thank both of you for having me on. This was a blast.